Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. I am your host, Justin Dixon, and today we've got Maxwell Nee on the podcast. He is the co-founder of Flamingo, which is an app that automatically tracks travel days for tax residency, visa, and immigration compliance. It's kind of an interesting episode because he grew up in Australia. He's lived all over the world. He considers himself a digital nomad. At the end of the episode, we talk about his favorite vacation spots. He's talked about all the circuits that he goes on throughout the years where he lives in different countries throughout the year. But we dig into the app, how he started it. It's been around for only 6 months. It was a pain point for him and his co-founder, which is why they started the business. So really cool episode. So let's get Maxwell on the pod. Interested in hearing conversations with private equity leaders, CEOs of private equity-backed companies, and startup entrepreneurs where they share their stories about their career journeys, starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, and the important role that having the right talent plays in building a successful business, then you are in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. Here's your host, Justin Dixon. Maxwell, thank you for being a guest on the pod. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Justin.
Yeah, no, well, let's jump right in. Give everybody that's watching and listening a little bit of an overview of who you are, where you are, and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, so I'm a entrepreneur from Australia, but I lived all around the world. Lived in like Bali, Mexico, Copenhagen, Barcelona, London, a bit of time in Chicago as well. And right now, I'm focused on a new startup that we founded with my business partner. It's called Flamingo, and it helps you to track your travel reporting days. So most people that are expats or they're high net worth individuals and they're frequent flyers. Even if you spend a lot of time between like US states, you need to make sure that you don't overspend your time in a different state, because then you've got a tax liability in that state, you need to be able to report that accurately when you're applying for visas. Let's say you're moving from the US to Europe or to the UK or to the Middle East. They want to know where you spend your time and how you measure that, and that is accurate. So we've created an app that does that automatically, without a credit card paywall, without account creation. It just works. It just works on your phone, attaches itself to your phone, and then keeps you compliant, and also, stops you from accidentally doing fraud, because a lot of people do that as well, where they have to report their end of year travel days, and who counts that accurately? Pretty much no one does.
And so what is the normal process that people use? Is it other than using an app like this, is it like I have an Excel doc or I have a Word doc where I just like check the number of days that I am in the UK or in a different state, so that they're submitting that to the IRS or whatever tax body is necessary to stay compliant? Is that kind of the thing you're competing against, is just a Google Doc essentially?
Most people don't even have that.
Okay.
Like that's highly organized type of thing. Most people, they'll take a photo of their passport stamps and send it to like an accountant and say, please help me.
That's interesting, because like most, like I don't travel a ton, but you don't always get stamped anymore. So it's like,
Exactly.
How do you even do that? Because if you're not going to get a passport stamp, you can't even say that that's a verification there. So which I miss, by the way. Like I travel partially just to get the stamps, I feel like.
Really?
Not getting them
cool.
is unfortunate. So how did you come up with the idea? I'm curious, kind of maybe walk us through your kind of founder journey. How long has the business been active? And I'd love to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, so my co-founder came up with the idea. We both had our own run-ins with this problem. So he had a run-in because he was applying for a visa to the UK, and it cost him something like an extra £10,000. So like, 15,000 US dollars to not have this done and not have it accurate. And he just missed out on a couple of days of where he needed to be. And then I left Australia 10 years ago and gave up my tax residency 10 years ago. and I've been living as I lived as a nomad for most of that time until I got married and settled down in one place. And I always had to record my tax residency, because when you give up residency in the place that you live, and then you're living in other places around the world, you always need to have that extra bit of evidence. So you always need to be able to evidence everything that you say. So this, as soon as I saw this, and the problem was solved really, really well, it just sort of, I was a target audience, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of other people. So just to give you an example, we've been in the market for about 6 months, so like 180 days, and we have 50,000 users.
Wow.
Yeah, and a large chunk of that is paid users. Some of them are in the free trial period still, and we've hit more than 100K ARR, annual recurring revenue, and our users include like English football teams, celebrities. They include
Interesting.
Grammy-winning artists, billionaires, and they and so that's really helped us to really solidify all the different pockets, and then also there's a large accounting firm. So you think about like a McKinsey, a Bain or an EY. Think about how much of their workforce is like fly in, fly out, right? And obviously they need to keep themselves very compliant, because that's what they do. A lot of them have their own tax departments. So really, really small but painful, but helps you to meet fun, interesting people type of business.
And so for maybe people that aren't as world traveled as you are, I'm just curious, before we jump into a little bit more about the business. So you gave up your residency in Australia and such that I don't want to be an Australian resident anymore. And then you lived as a nomad. So what does that mean? You essentially have to apply for a visa to live in certain areas for X amount of time. Like how does that logistically work?
Yeah, so my definition of nomad is I lived out of a suitcase. So
Got it.
so it doesn't mean that I didn't commit to paying tax anywhere. I have tax returns. It just means that I basically didn't commit to like a long-term rental lease for majority of that time, and just kept myself flexible. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of digital nomad visas out there now, just with everybody coming out of COVID and people working fully remotely, and all that fun stuff. And I've even had people that I've talked to that have moved outside of the country, maybe not full time, but for part of the time, but they can still work at their current company. How would that work? So if you're working for a company and then you decide, hey, instead of living in the US, I'm going to go live in Costa Rica because it's the same, I'm just using Costa Rica or any kind of country that's in the same time
Puerto
zone.
Rico.
Yeah. And just be like, cool, I'm going to go live there. Like, do you have to do something, or does a company have to do something to make sure that they're compliant, or how do they, again, I don't want to get too deep in the technicalness of this, but I'm just kind of curious how it works.
It's all on you.
Okay.
It's all on you to sort out, your tax, where you pay it, your bank accounts, that type of thing. The company gives you the opportunity. They say, look, we're going to pay you money to fulfill this job, and then it's on you to work out, your personal compliance, right? Tax compliance, because it's no one's responsibility but your own.
And so even though they're taking taxes out of your paycheck, assuming you're a W-2 worker, they are taking that out based on your place of residence when you got the job, right? And so if you have other tax liability because you go live in another state or another country, that would be something you'd have to account for, both financially, but also account for and file the necessary returns and all the other things. Is that right? And I'm not a CPA or an accountant, but I'm just kind of trying to play through it in my brain.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea, and it's not just where they so there's where you're hired from, and then there's where you actually spend your time. So this counts where you actually spend your time. So as an example, let's say you live in Texas, you're hired from Texas, but then we go into a pandemic and you get to work 100% remotely. Your mom is sick in California, so you end up spending 90% of your time in California for all the right reasons. So you need to report that, and your tax liability will probably change at that point. I'm not 100% familiar with the US, but I know that in the US we actually we help people to track different states, their liability, their time in different states. So you have 80% of your days in California, 20% in Texas, that type of thing.
And I guess how do people how do the authorities know, right? So in that scenario, because a lot of people moved out of their state, during the pandemic. I never even thought about, not that we did this, but I never even thought about having to adjust or account for a state's taxes. So, and let's assume in that scenario where you go live with somebody that already has, they're a local resident of that location. So you're not signing a new lease, right? So I still have my lease here in Austin, or my house in Austin, but then I go stay in Denver with a buddy of mine who's got an apartment there for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is. How do they figure that out, or is that not something they figure out? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I can't speak for all countries. I've never been through this process, fortunately, but it's one of those things where it's not a problem until you're asked, can you evidence this? And then if your evidence is weak, then, they could go into more of an audit situation. When you move into an audit situation, it's like you're more guilty until you're proven innocent, right? So the scariest thing about this process is that, look, no one tracks their days manually. Like, no one does it to the day. No one does it accurately. It's just not something that people do unless you're extremely diligent, and just no one is, because a lot of people don't even know that this could be an exposure for them. And but if you just make it up when you're asked, then that's fraud. You've accidentally sort of walked into fraud just based on not equipping yourself with the tools to cover yourself from the exposure.
Got it. Well, let's dig into how it works. So if people listening to this are like, oh gosh, I do live in a state and then I go to California, or I do, spend time, in Costa Rica or London or Singapore or wherever. How does the app work? And then, does it, I think I was looking at the website, it kind of gives you some alerts as to say, hey, you may want to get out of the state or a country or whatever, because you are about to hit the threshold of, minimum days or whatever. Like, maybe walk us through kind of some use cases and how the app actually works, so that you don't have to do a Google Doc or whatever you want to use.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's super, super easy. If you go to Flamingo is in like the bird, flamingo.tax. That's our short link that we've made to make it easy for people. And you just download the app onto your phone. You can start using it immediately. It'll literally just start working, because what it does is that it doesn't need your credit card details. It doesn't need your an account. It doesn't need your email. We don't need anything. We just need it to be on your phone, and then it'll start logging the information of where you are approximately onto your phone, so that you can then report that. It tracks a lot of things. It tracks, it can track 2 residencies. So a lot of people might have like 2 passports, or they might have one, they're going for a second. There might be in between an immigration sort of overlap. It can track, US states, like we've spoken about. It can also track European visas. So what a lot of people don't know about when you go to Europe, let's say you go there for business like 4 times a year, and then you also go there for the European summer. So what a lot of people don't know is that Europe is mostly free travel to some of the better passports in the world for 90 days. but that's 90 days based on a 6-month rolling window. So, and if you overstep that, then you've basically breached. You can be blacklisted from Europe, which is a huge. You don't want that. So
Yeah.
that's a really scary one, because I was in Europe on a visa, sort of meeting friends, walking around, spending time business. And when business is on, they say, "Hey, look, you stay here for another 2 weeks." You can't say no, right? So you have to know what to do, when to do it, that type of thing, and then it'll just start working for you for a month. And then if you want to keep using it, then there's different membership options.
And I'm assuming it's really just tracking or using the location GPS in your phone. So wherever your phone is, obviously, theoretically, that's where you are. And so it is just saying, cool, okay, you've been spending, you spent 10 days or 30 days in and around London, right? Traveling, doing whatever. And then you went to Italy for 3 weeks. And you went to, so you're in Europe or whatever. And maybe London's not the right example because they're kind of Brexited, but you've kind of spent, and so you're starting to rack up days in Europe. And then you've obviously loaded in all of the guardrails or legal ramifications so that it can, I guess, can it be like, hey, Justin, I know you may want to stay here another 2 weeks, but you've got 7 days left on your 90-day free window. You either need to leave, or here are other options that you can do to retain or stay longer.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't do that yet, but that's in the roadmap, and that'll be there very soon. I'll give you another example. It's not just the GPS; it uses a lot of intelligent sources of information and then triangulates them. One example is we have some billionaires using it, and they want, what we've noticed is that they want to stay out of they need to spend enough time out of certain countries. You know what I mean? To not be liable in those countries. So what they do is they actually spend time on their yacht in international waters. So they're in like a purgatory. They're in like a like a limbo. They deliberately put themselves into a limbo, and that is extremely valuable for them to be able to evidence, because as you can imagine, they have a lot of if they slip, it's a big number.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this was a problem, and a lot of businesses are born out of people's problems, and hey, I had this issue. I wish there was a solution. Obviously, it sounds like that was the case for you and your co-founder. How did you guys meet? Did you guys know each other for a long time, or was it? I'm curious, kind of how founders meet if they're not, living next to each other.
Yeah, good question. So we met on LinkedIn. So we sort of met, got talking. He's like co-founder number 1, I'm co-founder number 2. So I've come on, after very, very early stage revenue. And we just sort of meet and clicked. And I said, I know this exact problem. I know how to distribute it. I can cover a different part of the world. So that was all valuable. But most importantly, we've both had, it's a bit like dating. Like when you've had a few bad relationships, you know exactly what you want, what to look for, you know how to talk up front and say, hey, look, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. This is, how I work, this is how I don't work. Can we work together? Can we put together a deal that covers everyone's risk, and let's go for it.
Yeah. And so it sounds like he maybe had started the business, or at least had an idea for it, and brought you in. How do you guys kind of, as co-founders, kind of like divide and conquer? And how big is the company from a people perspective?
Yeah, company's like less than 5 people.
Okay.
And most of that's development. He's a technical and products, and I'm sales. Commercial sales and partnerships. So we're looking to meet as many partners as possible. A typical partner could be a immigration law firm, could be a tax. There's a lot of firms that specialize in UK, US tax, so they specialize in tax for expats. And then also like private equity, is a really big industry. Consulting you know, management consulting, expat jobs, you know, mining people because they're constantly flying and traveling, and you know they deal with big numbers, so they don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah. Have you seen? I mean, I guess you've only been in business for 6 months, but since COVID and a lot of people are talking about moving to Portugal. They're hey, I can
Yeah,
live in Italy for 10 cents on the dollar as compared to
yeah.
high cost of living states in the U.S. Like, are you seeing this as oh wow, this is something that doesn't exist or didn't exist until now, and there's a high demand for it just because again, it depends on what Instagram wants to feed me today, whether it's a bunch of Italy properties because we went to Italy or it's something else, so
Yeah,
it
good
depends on what I'm
question.
seeing.
So I don't know what the market was like pre-COVID because we didn't exist pre-COVID, but I can tell you it's exploded. Like our interest has exploded, type of thing. So we launched in the last 6 months, and we're 50,000 users, and we haven't spent any money on marketing. We've just
Hmm.
been posting the app on like forums,
Yeah.
like travel forums, and it's just been like, comment, refer, like tons of people referring, and also because it has such zero friction, So I think a
Yeah.
lot of apps trip over on the friction. We're actually pinged by the App Store because we're the first app. Because my co-founder is a brilliant developer. We're the first app that has created a referral link that can be traced without you needing to create an account.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you don't create an account, but then your referral link can be native to your app on your phone. We can still find who referred you. So and we've done that on purpose because what we're dealing is with very highly sensitive privacy data,
Yeah.
and we've operated on the assumption that that any company is hackable if someone really wants to hack you, right? Like people hack Google, so I'm sure they could hack us. And so we've structured the business in such a way that there's no privacy data at risk. So we don't know. Like I don't have like a profile of you that we keep in a central database. We don't do any of that, and that's extremely high value because a lot of obviously like the billionaires ask for that. And we only found out they were billionaires after they asked for it because then
Yeah.
they tell us who they are, then we jump on a call with them. So it basically makes you into like a barcode. So we don't know who they are. We have like 50,000 barcodes flying around the world, and tracking their locations.
And so if you don't have an account, so if I want to pull this out and say, let's say I get audited, and I need to show evidence, how does it then say, okay, this was Justin that traveled versus another barcode?
So that will be local to your phone. So everything's local to you, right? And then your phone, you download the app on your phone, local to your your Apple ID or whatever. So it's 100% in your control locally.
Got it. Okay. So then if somebody hacks into your servers, they're not able to see who I am,
They
but
can't see
I
anything.
mean,
Yeah.
oh, got it. Got it. Interesting. So, you've started this business. Sounds like you've had really successful growth. You mentioned some of the partners. I'm curious, like, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to work with influencers that are all like, I've seen like, digital nomad or expat visa coaches that are out there that are, helping people relocate to different countries. I have to imagine that would be like an interesting additional source of being like, hey, you're helping 5,000 people move from the US to Italy. They're obviously going to need to track this stuff.
Yeah, we want to speak to as many of those as possible, and we really see ourselves getting to we are raising money right now to bridge us into cash flow positive, but we see that happening within about a quarter or two. So we don't need a lot. Like it's less than $500,000 type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I just thought of, my wife and I literally looked into like, okay, if we wanted to get a second passport, what are what are the paths to doing that, both quickest, cheapest, less friction, et cetera. And we talked to this. I think it was a law firm that does that. Like that's what they do is they help people get a second passport, and they give you all the options. I feel like that would be
I would love to
another
talk to them.
I'll email you after this. Sorry, I didn't mean to do a biz dev like thing on the podcast, but no, I'll send you his info because that would be probably a good referral source. So I'm curious a little bit about. I mean, we got to talk about AI, and I'm curious about how are you guys using it in the development of the product, or is there any AI built into the product? It's hard to talk about a tech product without talking a little bit about AI.
No, zero. So my co-founder is a real, like I said, he's a brilliant developer. He doesn't need AI to develop stuff. He's actually not a fan of it. He thinks that it's still very rudimentary. It's a bit like, I forgot how he describes it. He describes it like it's like having a junior developer, or like a junior. Imagine like a junior architect draw a house compared to a really experienced architect, because he's got that experience. So he's not a fan of it, and we also don't actually use it in any parts of the business. It's all just really simple. The art of the business is that the tech has been built in the simplest way possible. So the computation and everything is super super simple, which is sophisticated in its simplicity.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't need to be super complicated to be really effective and build a profitable business, right? Like, sometimes complexity just adds a lot of layers and fluff, but not actual value.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually had this conversation with him. I said, "Hey, look, do we use any AI in the business?" And then we had a big long thing about it because he doesn't like it, and for all the right reasons. And then I said, "Yeah, you're right. We don't need to distract people by throwing out buzzwords and stuff if it's just not relevant."
Do you see this like being able to integrate with some type of accounting software, like a QuickBooks or something, where it can just literally like say you need to, because you move or you have multiple passports, wherever that you need to track this stuff. And again, maybe QuickBooks isn't the right thing, but is that something where you see down the road of like a product feature integration to seamlessly connect so that your CPA and everybody has all the relevant data?
So we see that. We definitely see that. I've tried to like go to like Xero and go to their page and see if I can, get onto like a partner page or whatever. But then, that they're just too big. So yeah, we definitely see, just everything should be a button, right? Like if there's a problem, there should be a button where it's like, hey, look, you have this problem, press this button, buy this service, it'll make your life easier. And we're getting there with a lot of things, like just like, Amazon Prime just has buttons for everything, all the things that you want. So at some point, we definitely want that. Yeah. As soon as possible, to be honest. Yeah.
So I guess I'm curious. So we're recording this in kind of mid-January 2026. I guess your thoughts on, because you've been probably immersed in travel and visa and all this other fun stuff for the last handful of months. Do you see the race to having a second passport or having optionality around where you live and work and digital visas and digital nomads and all that stuff? Do you see that trend staying the same, going down, going up, in the next, year, 2-3 years?
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that champion this as their business, like obviously the visa market. Like I get the Instagram video reels of like guys in Dubai, like visa experts. They'll ask them a question: what's the best passport for bank accounts? What's the best passport for access? And I see there's, thousands of people sharing those videos. So those videos are obviously of high interest to a lot of people. And that is only growing for a few reasons. Obviously, the world's a very chaotic place, and there's a lot of information about its chaos. So people are more well informed, like the most well informed there's ever been. Like obviously terrible things can happen in certain parts of the world, and then we find out about it instantly. Like worldwide, right? Like that's a superpower. So that I think snowballs into people having real-time information. And when you have real-time information, like a lot of parts of the world is a scary place. And then, you start to think about the real risk of, what if I got stuck in this country? What would happen then? Or what if I lost access to what I take for granted? What would happen then? And just like diversifying your freedom, whether it's bank accounts, whether it's investments, whether it's like my wife, we think about where to move all the time. We have a daughter; she's 7 years old, and the first thing that she thinks about is that country, at risk of war, because she grew up in Soviet Union, Russia, and like grew up in a country that was disbanded from in Kazakhstan, disbanded from Soviet Union, Russia, and they had to rebuild the currency. The economy, there was no food, there was no hot water when on the day they disconnected, and then they had to rebuild it like in the middle of winter, so she really thinks about like stability and like countries that don't pick a fight with any other countries. So she likes countries like Singapore. She wants to stay away from countries, ideally, from the conflict regions in the Middle East. I'm pretty sure a lot of us do. And also countries of high crime, because at that point in time when Kazakhstan disbanded, you can imagine people were like stealing food to survive, right? So, so she's lived through that, so she doesn't want to go into that again.
Yeah. No, I think that there's good reasons to want to, try to get yourself out of the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
Even if it is from the other side of the coin, being a billionaire and being like, I need to get out of this country because I'm going to have to pay millions of dollars in tax. But other times it is just the life security, right? You want to move to a country that is, more secure, more economic opportunity than maybe where you were born and grew up. I guess I'm curious about the business. Maybe obviously it sounds like you're raising a little bit of money right now. What do you think is if we jumped on a podcast, a year from now, what are maybe 1, 2, 3 things that you are trying to do in 2026 that you'd be, excited about sharing in a year from now?
Yeah. So the target is 100 partners with the idea that they'll bring, 10 to 20 clients within a short period of time. So that's 100 accounting, tax, law, immigration firms, and or HR departments. Because if a HR department has high global mobility in their department, then they need to be across this as well. Like for example, the HR department of EY, has a whole people division that is in their contract to fly in, fly out. Right. So they know that they need to solve this problem type of thing, and they're always moving, they're always changing visas, that type of thing.
Got it. No, I think this is very useful, and I feel like there's more and more people that are trying to figure out moving out of their own country or own state. I think could be really useful. Even if it's just to make sure that you're compliant, right? Because the last thing you want to do is get hit with a big bill or audited in a year from now, and then you're not prepared. So very, very cool. I appreciate you coming on, Maxwell. I want to kind of shift to the end of the episode here, as we always do, asking a 3-pack of questions. So first question here is, what's an influential book or podcast that you'd recommend to the audience?
Yeah, good question. So there's 2 books that I love to read, and I read them over and over and over again. The first book is Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. So he's a friend of mine, and he writes great books. And then the second book is by an American guy called Brad Jacobs, and it's called How to Make a Few $1 Billion. So we've all dreamed about having a unicorn business, $1 billion business, and he's done it like 7 times.
Oh wow!
So yeah. And he just plays with big numbers, big markets, and he just cracked the code and just does it over and over and over again.
Who wouldn't want a few $1 billion, huh? That's
yeah, it's a pretty attractive proposition.
Yeah, no, for sure. Awesome. Second question here. What's your favorite thing to do outside of work? Maybe other than travel.
Yeah. Well, I love. I believe in hygiene. Like mental hygiene. So I love to sweat, love to just clear my head. Love to play pickleball to sweat, and then also love to go to the gym every morning. Like I'll go to the gym after this. Like it's 6 a.m. right now, and I'll go to the gym straight after this.
Yeah, no, you're in Singapore, so I appreciate you getting up early for the podcast.
It's still dark outside.
Yeah, I'm also an early to gym person, but it is 4:00 p.m. my time. So awesome. Last question here. Favorite vacation spot, and obviously you've traveled a lot, so I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so very cheesily, I always try to tell people, you want a life that you don't want a vacation from, so you just want like a track, a circuit, a routine that you love, and it gives you everything that you need. Yep. You give it everything that it needs. So our circuit right now is most of our time in Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, and then Europe during the summer. That's places like the UK. It's Barcelona, where I used to live, and then checking out really cool spots like Mykonos and Ibiza, and then Chicago. I love Chicago during the summer. Chicago is one of the best cities in the world. In case if you've never been, especially during the summer, like it just comes alive. Like most cities, London's probably one of the best cities in the world as well. During the summer, it's terrible otherwise. And then we like to do ideally want to get into Niseko for like the winter holidays, so like close to Christmas, then do Christmas with the family in Australia, and then probably do I think New Year's in Sydney is the best in the world. I think it's better than London, better than New York, and I've done all of those, better than Dubai. And then probably end the skiing season in Kazakhstan, where my wife's family's from.
Got it. So you just travel around, just go into all these different places throughout the year.
Well, I'm all about optimization. It's optimizing my health, life, tax. Even where Camilla, our daughter, goes to school. So we really have created a plan where we want her to do her primary years learning Chinese in Malaysia, where we are right now, and then the secondary years, then we'll move her to an international school, because I think that'll just really optimize her like expand her like maturity, right, into like different markets, different languages, different cultures, and just give her the best tools to win at life.
Love it. Very cool. Well, I guess if anybody wants to reach out and connect with you, learn more about Flamingo, learn about your travel patterns and your favorite places to go, what's the best place to connect with you?
I'm addicted to LinkedIn, so message me there and I'll see it, and we can go from there.
Cool. Awesome. Maxwell, really appreciate you being on the podcast. Thanks for being a guest.
No worries. My pleasure. Ciao.
I hope you found at least one actionable insight from this episode of the Growth Capital Podcast, your one-stop shop for insights from private equity leaders, CEOs, and startup entrepreneurs on starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, as well as the role having the right talent plays in growing a successful business. It would be greatly appreciated if you would rate and review this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and drop us a comment so we can expand the audience of this podcast. Thank you for all your support, and don't forget about upcoming episodes dropping every Tuesday.